Yo, it's your boy Mothy here to hit you in the feels with some cutesy Bloodborne content. Grab your safety blanket. Bloodborne is not wall-to-wall, high-octane, drill-em and grill-em cosmic family reunions. That's only 92% of the game. In a journey full of nightmare creatures, screeching madmen, and tense combat, the moments of peace in between stand out that much more, and I want to share those pleasant moments with y'all here. I recently took a journey through Bloodborne and hunted down all the choicest spots to take a breath, pop open a cold one, and try not to reflect too long on how the celestial baby we just executed might have had a family who misses it. And besides the cozy spots, we're also going to vibe in the liminal areas that you, as a player, likely only pass through a single time and may not pay much attention to, since they're just designed as connective tissue between point A and point B. So if you're down to take the world's coziest stroll through the typically hostile world of Bloodborne, take my hand and I'll teach you how to put the cost in cozy. That's enough jawing for now though. Let's see some examples. So the very start of the game is not particularly cozy in terms of the environment and your surroundings. It's more cozy based on expectation of what's coming. There's disgusting used medical equipment lying around. There's organ trays and buckets full of needles. And the lights are out. Every single word cannot express the love and tenderness. But when you're launching a new Bloodborne adventure, and you've heard the reputation this game has for difficulty, you're just creeping around the clinic waiting for the hard part to begin, and there's this kind of cozy, calm before the storm aspect to things that I enjoy here. I died to the werewolf and ended up in Hunter's Dream, which feels a little obvious for a video about cozy places in Bloodborne, but I specifically wanted to call out the back garden behind the church. It is pretty hard to even find. You really have to be probing the edges of the area to discover the path that goes back here, and it's not an area that many players will visit more than once or twice if they really like changing out their messenger outfits at the tree stump. Also, Hunter's Dream is kind of a vibe before you ever get the doll awake or the workshop unlocked. It's really just you alone in here looking out over pretty vistas that recall the trees that you see from Ashen Lake or Tomb of the Giants in Dark Souls 1. And it's also the least haunted view of the moon we'll get this whole game. Plus, wading through waist-high weeds and shrubs reminds me a lot of going hunting for geocaches. Once you're outside the clinic, I wanted to show off the first balcony you come to in central Yharnam. You know, this was a nice rest spot for the Yharnamites because it has these wooden benches set up to take in the view. They probably come here on their day off and enjoy a baguette or something and feed the crows. The view here is pretty nice. It's mostly of the bridge, which is, I think, where we're going to fight the cleric beast in a minute. So design-wise, it is cool to get a glimpse of our future from far away. Plus, it's very pretty how the light reflects off the bottom of the arches. This is my final place above ground in central Yharnam to show off. This is the courtyard where you fight that executioner ogre, so it is the first in a series of cozy once you kill things out of it area. But look how nice the sunset is here. It's very pretty. And also this area is a cozy little cul-de-sac dead end. There's something about knowing that you're safe on at least 3 sides that makes these spots extra nice if you need to go fill your water or answer a text message or something. The sewer. Crawling zombies aside, the moisture also kind of detracts from the coziness in the sewers. And yet, check out this little alcove. There is no purpose for coming in here. It's just a little cutaway place for you to run into once, confirm that it doesn't have any items or lead somewhere, and then exit. The sewer has a bunch of these areas. This one's a little bigger, and one of them does have an item in it, so if you are a proper Souls player, you're going to visit each of these areas one time and rotate your camera around the back of each of the columns to make sure there's no items before you leave. Another type of zone that I capture a lot are spots under or next to staircases. I always got really fascinated by spots like this in school and also in college. There were really quiet stairwells on the way out of academic buildings with little crawl spaces at the bottom of the stairs that looked perfect for building a fort in and hanging out for a minute. Is there a word for this, or a better way to phrase that besides little under the stairs area? I really like these spots always. This is Father Gascoigne's boss arena, which I'm showing temporarily to state that I'm mostly going to exclude boss arenas from this video, or the whole thing would easily just turn into a boss arenas video. What I do want to highlight is after opening the gate out of this arena, you get to this staging area for coffins that are all probably waiting to be buried in the graveyard we just exited. This is a liminal area because players are only going to pass through here not exactly once, because you may want to run back this way to kill Henrik if you're on Eileen's questline, but mostly one time, and after checking for items here, you're probably not going to linger in the place. And the next room, still on that once traveled path between Gascoigne and the Udden Chapel Roan, is one of the areas that inspired this whole idea for me originally. This cozy little wood-paneled room has lit sconces on the walls, it has bookshelves, nice big tables and chairs for studying, and a chest in the corner with a nice key item. Do we have a name for this room? The Udden Study Hall? This is the single coziest place in the game, and it's also liminal by virtue of we're only passing through here. They even provide us reading materials. Another spot that helped me come up with the video idea originally was the big overlook esplanade in the cathedral ward. Yes, I did have to do a lot of murder, pun intended, to make this place safe for footage. It's got a fantastic view, actually one of the most striking views in the game, and the game knows that because this is where they give you the monocular for zooming in. It's actually a little strange how this balcony is crumbling away, because for being full of beasts, Yharnam is for the most part in good repair. They only recently stopped doing maintenance on things like this. Over on the left side, there's a tiny broken fence in a tight spot that every player probably tries to attack or roll through one time. And over to the right are more benches, adding some life to the spot. It's hard to imagine the citizens of Yharnam enjoying a nice afternoon stroll outside, but apparently they used to do. There's also a lot of beautiful trees here, so at least when they have leaves, Yharnam has a very talented arborist. If you want a spot that does not require killing to make it nice, head down the stairs on the far right side of this area. After a short tunnel, we hit a room full of urns placed upon rugs. A few of them are broken with what looks like ash spilling out, and yet this Spartan room hardly feels reverential for the dead. Now, my theory is that this is how the Healing Church members were laid to rest, because there's another tunnel out on the far side of this room that would have led out to where we fought the cleric beast, and we actually see another room like this in the upper cathedral ward. The door here never opens. It's theorized that this path was nixed late in development, so the door remains there and they just had it closed permanently. But silver lining to that, that makes this area a nice, weird little cozy dead end for us to enjoy. I did not originally have this area planned because it does not make me feel cozy, but you're almost certainly not passing through more than one time since there's little danger until the old Yharnam lantern that's coming soon. This is another smaller chapel in the style of Udden, but it's mostly just a transition from above down to below. The staircase down from here does start to have exposed brick walls that establishes the aesthetic for old Yharnam. Okay, there's a random werewolf in this room. There was a random werewolf in this room. With him gone, this is another one-shot, one-opportunity room on the descent into Old Yharnam. But the brickwork has been chosen intentionally, and red cloths hang from the ceiling like the ones we'll see cloaking the blood-starved beast. It's a nice detail in this otherwise throwaway room. Old Yharnam itself, hectic, dangerous. Then you reach the bottom. Welcome to Crow Balcony. There's a bunch of birds here and one piece of loot on this finger butthole situation over here. But once this is handled, this is a strange little place. It's a dead end, decorated with some manicured trees, and it overlooks the coming blood-starved beast arena/church. There are creepy moaning sound effects on the breeze, but relative to its surroundings, I found Crow Balcony to be a kind of nice place. Related, mind you, still a small stretch for cozy, use your imagination, but I love the vibe on the blackened streets at the very bottom of Old Yharnam. The way that it's suddenly quiet and tense down here after dealing with Jura and a million beastmen is just perfect. It's that transition from I'm in danger to I'm probably in danger as you check around these quiet corners for loot. It's just so fantastic. If you get it, you get it. I don't have adequate words to explain why this area feels cozy, but it is. Plus, walking back from the closed parl doors, there's a really cute broken spot in the fence on your left with absolutely no purpose other than for Mothy to feature it in a video about cozy places in 2024. This is my hole. It was made for me. Skipping forward, I'm not calling this room cozy, but I did a lot of aiming the camera in weird angles as I shot footage for this, and I noticed the ceiling in the tower on the way to the upper cathedral ward is covered in blades. It looks like saw cleavers and a couple of burial blades too. I had never noticed the church weapon arsenal up here on the ceiling. What I actually wanted to highlight in this area is the second burial urn chamber right before the locked upper cathedral ward entrance. I'm gonna be real, I don't have anything to add since we were in the last room, just enjoy the vibe. This next shot is unique because you will only ever see this on your first time playing the game. It's if you try to access the woods before killing Vicar Amelia and find that the door is locked and you don't have the password. The view running up the spiral stairs is unique, if not special, but what I really wanted to show was this view of the windmills in the Forbidden Woods at sunset. This is a rare shot because after playing once, you'll know that you have to kill Vicar Amelia first and plunge the world into darkness before you come this way, so... Hemwick Charnel Lane is a lot cozier if you do the area before night falls. I wanted to capture the run into Hemwick. If, instead of approaching the big, obvious Grand Cathedral where a boss fight awaits, you turn left to look for loot along this balcony, like a good player would, then you realize there's actually a break in the fence, and that leads down a long pathway into an entirely new area. The whole pathway into Hemwick is a long one, and it feels private and hidden in a way that's very cozy to me. Now, as you can tell from the blood covering my costume, Hemwick itself has a lot of battles to fight. But after putting down Cupcake and Princess, they lure you out like an anglerfish to the very tippy end of this crumbling bridge with an item. I'm 6 feet from the edge and I'm thinking, maybe 6 feet ain't so far down. It's hard for me to justify this spot's inclusion in a video called Cozy and Liminal Spaces. It's just a strange spot. And I at least wanted to capture the sublime view that you can get while standing out here. One more for Hemwick. If we rewind slightly, the rooftops always felt protected for me. There's shaggy grass cropping up, which feels a little warm, and 1 or 2 deep nooks you can walk into to check for items. The witches like these spots too, because they hide here waiting for you to pass. Taking quite a jump forward now, we've been kidnapped into early yahar'gul, and instead of exiting the church, if we head downward into the basement, there's a completely safe, dead-end room with the lights on and Adela, the friendly NPC, praying in the corner. The rest of this area is quite an ordeal, but Nun Basement is objectively one of the coziest spots in the game. The furniture's a little weird though. I always thought these were bells until I looked closer, and I think this is an incandescent lamp that just isn't turned on. There's also a couple of Oculus mirrors here, but I don't think they're Oculus haunted in this universe. Here is a solid liminal space. After we recite the Healing Church adage and open the door toward the Forbidden Woods, this large spiral staircase room is one that we only pass through once without any enemies or content. It is kind of strange how suddenly Yharnam just ends right here. They really built up, not out, and we're very suddenly out of the city and into the woods. In my head, the woods were not going to have any nice places for this video, but I found a few, starting with the descending path past the dog kennels into the poison swamp. The whole area is maybe 100 paces long, and the floor is covered in non-human skeletons, but there's no enemies in here. That fact alone makes it a little cozy, and this place feels like an Elden Ring cave, kind of, or like Tomb of the Giants from Dark Souls 1. There's also one specific nook that you could kind of call cozy. This dude thought so and left us an item on his corpse. The skeletons on the ground look mostly complete, and I didn't see breaks or trauma to the bones, so I wonder if this mass grave here was a culling of a sick livestock population or something. It would make sense to either cause or correlate to the poison swamp that's down below. Of course, I had to capture the long ladders up from the swamp to Yosefka's clinic. Specifically, that the long ladder is broken up into 2 ladders which exchange in this strange landing room. Ain't nothing here but a pile of corpses. This time, yes, human or humanoid, probably dropped from above by Yosefka after failing to cure them. People say she's hot-tempered. She often loses her patience. Midway upon the path of life, I found myself within a forest, dark, for the straightforward pathway had been lost. That was Dante. Halfway through the woods, after dealing with the human half, so to speak, but before meeting the giant snake balls and pigs, the top of this long road down the hill has an excellent vibe, similar to the low streets of Old Yharnam. You got a smile that could light up this whole town, and we might need it, because it gets dark around here. This zone is like the 3rd Halloweeniest place in any video game that I know of, after literal Halloween Town in Kingdom Hearts and most of Medieval. Watch the kids a-playin' with June bugs on a string, and chase the glowing fireflies when evening shadows fall. What, were you expecting a different song about fireflies? That crackling is actually not my torch for once. There's ambient fire sounds. I have my gun out just to prove it. One more spot for the woods. Beneath the large roots on the way to the boss is the kind of natural fort that was fun to play in as a kid. It's very wet here, so the spot is not that nice, but it is protected from the horrors of the world with this nice root canopy. This wooded path just after the Shadows of Yharnam boss fight as you approach Byrgenwerth is the second founding father of this video, basically. A place that sticks in my mind even when I'm not actively playing or making Bloodborne content. Look how closely these trees are packed. This is clearly supernatural, while at the same time, what's more natural than a forest? This long, narrow, densely covered path has immaculate vibes with the moonlight filtering in, and I kind of wish I just lived here. I want to give a full walk through the reverse direction as well because I just love this spot so much and I want to see it from every angle. Byrgenwerth were some spooky dudes who really knew how to choose a good spot. With the tri-corner hat and my torch out here, I get hardcore Ichabod Crane vibes. Then this is one time that I will break my boss arena embargo because this cul-de-sac canyon at the bottom end of the Shadows arena is a very nice spot with its high walls. If you end up here during the fight, you're probably getting cornered and destroyed by snake men, but without that happening, this is a cozy spot to enjoy. Okay, inside Byrgenwerth proper. This one spot is objectively underwhelming. I just like it for being here. Make a right turn at the top of that little staircase for a tiny overlook here. It seems like a nice place for a peony garden if that's your office window. Much more relevant is this huge open patio on the esplanade over the lake, left side. It's just a big stone dais that would be perfect with some cafe tables and some live music or a movie screening in the summertime. There are no enemies out here either. It's just a very nice area with no reason for it except to hang out and look at the pretty moon. There's essentially a copy of the same spot reflected on the right side of the area, but this one has a single enemy looking pretty fly for a white guy. It's still an elite spot to have a cigarette if you're a Byrgenwerth scholar out on break. Let's take it inside now to the top of the tower. Have you ever walked on this little strip connecting the walkway? That is very unsafe without a railing. Take it down one level and we get a big circular platform serving no purpose besides aesthetic and a weird little under the stairs area that is kind of narrow and not particularly fun as far as these go. But take it down one more level and there's some top-notch under the stairs content. This might be my pick for the least likely spot to be appreciated by other players. You can go behind this staircase quite a ways, and it gets smaller and smaller until it shrinks to a point. This long, thin hook of ground is really awkward. It would be hard to fit furniture back here, and awkward to even stick a chest or loot in the corner, so the devs just left it blank. All for me. Thank you, developers. And this spot feels like low-hanging fruit, but it's a ring of leather couches. I'm not going to pass by a ring of leather couches in a video about cozy places. It could use some better lighting, and also the armrests look very stiff, so you'd want to bring a pillow to nap here, but couches. Taking a big leap forward, we could have come here earlier though. The walking route down into Yahar'gul is ripe with little crannies. There's a minor understairs area as you start in, but we can do way better if you hop off the roof here into this little wedge of an alleyway. This is a great place to like play marbles. Step out of there, hug to the left, and there's a bit of a niche between the chapel and the rectory. This pile of stones on the ground hurt the vibe, but we could do a little landscaping here to even it out. Feels like there would be a lot of mosquitoes back here though, you know what I mean? And we're still not done. Keep hugging left past that next building for a very tight spot. It's hard to believe the devs did not even place an item back here. This is a devious little spot where an item would be perfect. But nope, it's just a tiny little hole where somebody could easily get Cask of Amontillado. Hey, so the entire lecture building is liminal by definition and design. This is an ephemeral place separating worlds, a short little low difficulty experience between our hunt and the other nightmares. And if the lighting was just a little less periwinkle and more orange, I could call this place cozy too, but alas. It's got many big wooden dead-end hallways, which should be cozy based on other spots that I've rated, but these just don't do it for me. The fact that they're featureless and the lighting is creepy, it's just not the same. So why was this building built this way? I'm trying to picture students pacing around here to come up with ideas for a paper they're writing. But that's a lot of wasted real estate. There's one specific storage room directly off of the gigantic lecture hall full of slime students where you can build your own cozy spot by rolling some furniture away. I crashed my car into the bridge. I don't share. I love it. And that's not the only spot in this room either. Between the shelf and the wall, you can roll away this metal cage to build another cozy spot. Yes, there's a bunch of crap on the floor, but this reminds me of one spot in the back of the engineering library in college where someone had dragged a beanbag between two shelves, and sometimes when I had two classes that were 1 hour apart, I would just take a nap in there. Nightmare Frontier? That's why you shouldn't fly on a budget airline. But really, this place is going to be a struggle to find cozy spots. This hellscape is all bloody gravestones, poison swamp, tentacle alligators, winter lanterns, and ugly, sick trees and flowers. The best that I found is this cave cut into the cliffside. It did take some monster slaying to clean this place up for you, but at least these monsters dissipate instead of leaving ragdolls. This cave has some pale sunlight angling in, there's no poison, and it's relatively natural looking in here. It just has those hexagonal stones you see on the beaches in Iceland or the Giant's Causeway. We have to create and perceive beauty here, okay? We're in a nightmare. We've got to live a life from a new perspective. You come along because I love your face. There is one more spot I can justify showing off in the Nightmare Frontier. Between the bridge to Amygdala's arena and the shortcut elevator, there's a pointless little ledge you can walk on. It's got no enemies or items, just a perfectly pointless ledgy poo. Soak it in. Whoosh! We are on the exterior of Castle Cainhurst with all the enemies killed, so we can actually check out the space. First spot, if you head to the right of the door, there's a fun little corner zone behind a tree. Sure, it looks cold out here, but there's still leaves on the trees, and the lake outside is not frozen over, so it's probably just late fall here, and this is an early snowfall that might melt away tomorrow. There's a similar spot reflected on the left side of the entrance, and this one's better because there's a fun snowdrift right below a break in the fence that looks ripe for jumping into. Shame there's no snow angel emote. I headed back through the gates because I want to pay some attention to the liminal entrance run up. You come in on the carriage and run straight up to the lantern, so you're probably not going to see this pretty scene more than once and likely never in the reverse direction. The lanterns are all lit invitingly in Castle Cainhurst, belying the legions of crying ghost women inside the castle. Seriously, this place is like an Adrienne Lenker concert. Back inside the walls, there are too many notches in the castle walls to care, but I did notice this one had a very weird shape in the snow here that looks like it's covering a body, or like that face you see on photographs of Mars. Then fall down below to this canyon full of worms. There's usually a dozen or so highly aggressive worms down here, so people aren't going to spend much time here if they even go, but if you wipe them out, you gain a long canyon to shelter from the wind, and you get to enjoy the snow here. Halfway up the castle, I found a little spot where you can jump to a ledge over the staircase. Does anyone else get excited when you see a little platform over the stairs like this? They usually have an inch of dust and some rubber bands people have flicked up there, but sometimes there's decorations or furniture. Especially at Christmas time, buildings will often stick a tree up here, and I always kind of wish that was my job so I could hang out in the weird spot. This long covered bridge between towers is another liminal space I had in mind from the start. It gives strong Harry Potter vibes here. You know it's going to be really cold here in the winter with the windows allowing frigid air to blow straight through one side to the other. When you see those highway signs saying bridge ices before road, this is what they're talking about. I hope that Cainhurst knows about rock salt. See, people are tripping and falling here. The way is lined with gargoyles, some of which are missing their heads, but there's no rubble down below them, so somebody is still maintaining this castle. I cannot explain this one gargoyle that's shorn in half though. These look like the gargoyles that Batman perches on in the Arkham games, so maybe he visited here and had an accident. The Cainhurst Library. Should be cozy, but it's pretty wide open and it's got a lot of enemies, so not really. However, this place also comes with one of the best under the stairs spots in the whole game. It's a long, thin wooden hall with nice carvings, and it even hooks to the right at the end for a special little nook. After your terrible Murder Logarius fight on the rooftops and you open up the illusion wall, the statuary approaching Annalise is kind of a vibe. Specifically, these shelves off to either side. If you're a real Dark Souls player, you probably crept down both sides, making sure there's no item hiding behind a horse's ass. This room is another liminal space. It's stuck between two lanterns, meaning that you probably won't enter it more than once on your way to the second lantern, so... Yeah, I did all the chalice dungeons again for this video so I could capture the Loran biome. I didn't have a specific room in mind in the chalice dungeons because they're procedurally generated, but let me know if there's a certain chalice dungeon room layout that you find cozy. For what it's worth, the ritual material treasure rooms like this one aren't bad. These staircase rooms do have a weird ledge to the side at the top floor that I don't believe typically contain loot, but don't take my word for it. I mostly just wanted to show off the Loran biome overall. Contrasting the dark Thumaru and Hintertomb biomes before it, Ailing Loran dungeon feels a lot cozier. The dirt and the roots all over the ceiling and walls feel warm and fuzzy, your torchlight carries farther, and even the enemies are mostly beasts here instead of zombies or brain suckers. Plus, look how nice this little wall nook is. I guess I am standing on a grave though. Okay, yahar'gul again for the real visit. Believe it or not, this area is the one that I had the most trouble with in the game finding cute little spots, even less than the nightmares. Here is a small square balcony with no view at all, so this is kind of fun. This area as a whole is just unsafe because of bell-ringing women that force aggression and amygdala traps, and as you get lower down, it's taken over by creepy ritual chanting. So there you have it, folks. Yahar'gul is the least cozy area in all of Bloodborne. I liked the idea of capturing the safe staircase during the boss fight because I liked the idea of calm during the storm, but turns out it's actually not even safe here, so that doesn't qualify. After that, we're warped to the lecture hall again with new rooms available. This is the headmaster's office. I thought it was curious how there are statues on the headmaster's desk, like the creepy ones we find all over the environment. It's felt like we're supposed to take these statues as a fact of life in Yharnam, but their presence as curiosities on the headmaster's desk makes me feel less crazy. Yes, these things are weird and they're worth studying. The better spot that I want to highlight is this long balcony above the lecture hall on the second floor. It's completely safe, just a very long linear walk over to a small storage room with a chest in it. Creaky wooden footsteps, your only company. I can just smell the wood varnish in this area. It smells like an old church or a library in a small town. And then you get to walk back out. I'm just a kid and we're stuck in a nightmare. The most messed up, horrifying location I've seen in any video game, the Nightmare of Mensis, has a cozy landing spot. Before the frenzy and the spiders is this cave, a dead end that is our safe space. It's a lot like the entrance to the Ashes of Ariandel DLC in Dark Souls 3, where a friendly flyman is making his bed on a pile of rot. Here, the walls are made of tortured faces. There's a world of pain awaiting us and a nightmare newborn at the top of the castle, but before any of that, we can linger as long as we need to in this cozy cave. Halfway up Mensis is the library. Yeah, there's holes in the floor here, but we all rolled into this little spot behind the elevator to check it for loot at least once. Plus, rewinding a little in this room, there's a nice under the stairs spiral addition to this awkward little floor space that is stacked with books. And the books all seem to be physics objects, so you can have fun knocking them around. During Mikolash, we get another mid-boss fight safe area, which is a much better example than the one Reborn. Instead of pursuing Mikolash between phases, you can walk down this long spiral staircase to get a rune. Mikolash is spouting nonsense the whole time, which kind of harshes the vibe, but how nice is a long spiral staircase? I'm also realizing only now that boss music would be playing, and a lot of these places would feel a lot less cozy if I didn't have music turned off for filming, and also usually a crackling torch in my hand adding ambiance. The torch is like an instant +4 cozy wherever you go. Alright, I prefer the Hunter's Dream to not be on fire, so I dropped Mensis here to hit the upper cathedral ward. The entrance to this area is an excellent liminal space. If you can avoid dying to 2 normal healing church dudes, you will only walk through here one time. There are some Ebrietis babies out here as a sneak preview and a very pretty view of the purple sky. A narrow stone staircase leads up to a small bridge that is a major vibe with fog blowing across and gnarled trees on both sides. I get hardcore Duskwood or Deadwind Pass from World of Warcraft vibes here. I did not want to count the inside of the cathedral because it's pitch black and full of some nasty enemies. But once you exit the cathedral's front door and proceed up the staircase, there's another highly liminal covered bridge on your way to the Celestial Emissary boss fight. And that's not a difficult boss, so it's likely you'll only walk this way one time. Jumping way the hell forward, can you guess where I am? That's right, we're in the Boomhammer building in the DLC, my favorite place. If you head outdoors here, you hit one of my favorite spots in the DLC, the large plaza where you fight the Beast Claw Hunter for the Powder Keg badge. Homeboy has a lot of real estate claimed just for his fight, which can be helpful if you need to dodge around because he's quite aggressive. Interestingly, he had a neatly stacked pile of suitcases, so he was headed somewhere. I specifically want to call out this one dead end in his arena where a few graves have been planted. If you get backed in here during the fight, yours will be next. Next, we've got the nasty, stinking, bloody cave at the bottom of the River of Blood. For sanguine reasons, it's not real cozy, but this falls under the category of areas most players won't bother spending much time in because it's dangerous and not terribly important, so I wanted to at least give it a look over. Frankly, it's not that interesting. The walls are pretty featureless, there aren't even fun little nooks to hide in. All I can really point out is that there's a bit of an understairs area by this one ramp. Really, the Blood River ruins a lot of the real estate in the first third of this DLC. There is one pretty nice and dry slot next to these stairs, but it's very gray, like everything besides your picture on Dido's wall. And this little balcony that holds the constable's gloves is a source of constant joy. A little ways farther on the Blood River, there's a long, narrow street between two buildings that terminates in one item. It would really suck to have the main entrance to your building down here, like this house on the left does. Deliveries would never find you, but neither would solicitors, so win some, lose some. I love this curving path over the hill on the way to that bloody basin with the two squid giants. Taking a walk in the countryside has a lot of these small, steep hillsides. It just has such a nostalgic feeling of video games in general, like a undisclosed PlayStation 2 RPG. There's one long, narrow passage off of that blood basin where you collect the butcher's set, and this zone is pretty cozy, if you can, again, ignore the blood everywhere. And there's a very tiny alcove to enjoy inside the church with the lantern that you'll see a lot of as you make reps against Ludwig. Past the horseboy and the church cells, and we're up to the small hidden room beneath the elevator where you can collect a church cannon. The room itself is not particularly cozy, but the fact that it's hidden down here is what makes it nice. Now we're up in the patient cells, and please hear me out. Look how this one corner of this one patient room is inset to make a neat little cubic office space. This would be such a nice book nook under better circumstances, without the bloody restraints and stuff. Well, depending what you're reading. I know book talk gets pretty wild. Up a few staircases and a ladder, and there is one okay under the stairs area in the same room as well. A much more reasonable cozy spot in the Astral Clock Tower is this small balcony where Mr. Plip-Plop tends a single lumen flower. Inch by inch, row by row, he's gonna make that garden grow.
Blip, plop, blip, plop.
You're in no danger here, it's just a cute moment.
Splish, splash. Splish, splash.
Okay, do I get to count the lumen flower garden out on the bigger balcony as cozy? You have to murder a lot of uppity caster patients to pacify the area first. But after you do that, this is a pretty garden. We can't skip a pretty garden. Do you think these lumen flowers have seeds that are tasty if you salt and roast them like a sunflower? Past Lady Maria is my favorite liminal spot in the game besides those woods as you enter Byrgenwerth. This is the king of liminal spaces in Bloodborne. You just fought Maria, you raise the celestial dial to open the clock, and then you step through from everything you know into the actual nightmare that this entire experience was contrived to hide from meddling hunters. Suddenly, instead of beastmen and the city, we're facing fishmen and a decrepit rainstorm village. This spot is designed to stop you in your tracks and make you say, damn. I spend way too much time here at this spot every time I play Bloodborne. All I can say is that my life is pretty plain. I like watching the puddles gather rain. Let's talk about the hamlet itself. There's one pretty natural, low-key spot between the lighthouse shack lantern and the shortcut door that leads to the indoor fish processing area. This is just a soggy little overlook with a couple of trees and a view of the coming back half of the village. You can't have too much fun because they block this ledge with trees, but I really love this outdoor connective tissue area between indoor rooms. It's part of a shortcut, and that's sort of a unique place to identify as cozy. Of course, this spot is a little obvious, but it's the single gravestone and flower, probably laid by Maria, overlooking the corpse of Kos down on the beach below. It is a sad, tender little moment. Rewind to earlier in the hamlet, and there's a pointless little alleyway between this shack and the cliffside. Then you can really pick any house to chill in the village. Just hanging out in these shacks while the rain comes down is such an immaculate vibe. I should probably move somewhere that rains more in real life, honestly. There are some actual weird spots too, like these nooks between buildings where the fishmen hide to ambush you. And closer to the start of the area, there's a small wooden platform at the end of the street with no purpose. Speaking of no purpose, this is a little ledge on the exterior of a building in the second half of the fishing hamlet that you can only get to by rolling down to it. That's it. There's also the spot under a building that you can only get to by falling through the floor, since we're up on a cliff and there's no way up. I like this spot because it reminds me of those wooden playgrounds from when I was young that had all of those excellent hiding spots. That was actually everything I had for the DLC. We're whooshed back to Mensis now. There's a small courtyard near the crying Thumerian mother in Murgo's loft where a chest holds Yosefka's blood vial. The crying kind of makes it hard to enjoy the spot, but otherwise it would be nice. Also near the top of Mensis, there's a serene back route along the edges that skips past the pig patrols with some cute stairs action at the far end. This area has a beautiful moon view, and it's a wonderful place to reflect on your journey so far. I can't explain why it's wet though. That's what she said. Last but not least is the Chalice biome. It's not quite as pleasant as Loran to me, but it's very well lit in turquoise, and the dangling roots plus the grasses and flowers growing on the ground give Is a fuzziness that I find inviting. Just a hallway in a chalice dungeon. It's becoming less and less of an exaggeration that I like the chalices. Okay, let's avoid confronting that truth. This concludes our tour of the cozy and liminal spaces of Bloodborne. Did you have a favorite? Did I miss any spots that you love? This video was more freeform. It was my experiment in having a looser script rather than a tight 14,000 worder that I revised 4 times, so a comment would be very helpful to let me know if you enjoyed this style or hated it. Thank you so much to my patrons. I love you all so much. Y'all make it possible to continue making unhinged content for old video games, and I'm truly grateful for your support. The community has a panic at the Discord that we call the Mafia if you'd like to shoot the breeze between uploads. I also live stream sometimes. Would love to see you in either place. Links are below. I've got a little bit more content planned around spooky games through the Halloween season, so consider subscribing if you'd like to get notified when that comes out. And either way, thank you so much for watching to the end of my video. It means a great deal that you enjoy my work and or feel comfortable napping to my voice. I am grateful for every view. That's all I have for today. Peace out, Girl Scout.